When Kathy crashed her car, the paramedics called her family. Nobody showed. An hour later, her brother posted, "Road trip with the real crew." Kathy stayed silent. 4 days later, still bruised and bandaged, her phone lit up. 41 missed calls, and one request on Venmo. $3,100 for the cabin weekend. Everyone's chipping in. Then a message from Mom. "Call back. It's urgent. We can't fix this without you." Kathy got angry, and the day she crashed her car was the day she finally saw her family for who they really were. She hadn't even planned to be on the road that morning. She was supposed to fly back from Denver after a 3-day client conference, but Luke called her the night before, asking if she could send him some money for a weekend cabin trip he wanted to take with their sisters and a few friends. He made it sound urgent. Something about needing to book before midnight or losing the deal. He didn't have enough on his card, said she'd get paid back by Monday. Kathy didn't even hesitate. She told him she'd cover it again. That's just how it worked with her family. They called. She answered. Always. The problem was, the money she sent left her just short for a next-day flight. So she figured she'd drive home through the night instead. She didn't tell anyone that part. No point. They never really asked about the details of her life anyway. She left Denver around midnight. The highways were slick from a light snow that had melted earlier and then frozen over again. About 40 minutes from home, she hit a stretch of black ice near a curve. And that was it. A semi ahead of her lost control, jackknifed across the road. Kathy tried to brake, swerved left too hard. The wheels lost grip. She spun, hit the guardrail, then flipped. The airbag saved her, probably, but it felt like her insides had been crushed. Kathy remembered the metallic taste in her mouth, her ears ringing, paramedics pulling her out through the passenger side. They cut off her jacket. She asked if the truck driver was okay, but she didn't remember their answer. Everything blurred. Then she passed out. When Kathy woke up, she was in a hospital bed. Tubes in her arm, 4 ribs cracked, wrist fractured, arm stitched, whole right side of her body felt like it had been worked over with a hammer. The nurse told her she was lucky, said she'd probably be kept for observation a few more days. Kathy asked if anyone had come. The nurse checked the chart, said the paramedics called all her emergency contacts at the scene. Messages were left. Still, no one showed. Kathy waited. She stared at the ceiling for hours, checking her phone every few minutes. Battery down to 12%. No texts, no missed calls. Then, around 9:30 a.m., her brother posted on Instagram. Photo of him, her sisters Erin and Michelle, and her parents crammed into the SUV, holding up energy drinks and grinning like they were about to hit Coachella. The caption said, "Road trip with the real crew." It had been posted less than an hour after her crash. Kathy read it 3 times. Kept checking the timestamp, thinking maybe it had been posted earlier and just refreshed. It wasn't. They knew. They knew she'd been in a crash. They knew where she was, and they left anyway. Packed up and hit the road like she didn't exist. And that's when something inside Kathy changed. Not with fireworks, not with rage, just a snap. Like a rope pulled too tight, finally giving way. For years, she'd been the one holding everything together. She was the fallback, the helper, the woman who paid for the family beach rentals, the college textbooks, the emergency dental work. Kathy would send money for bills one week and cover a vacation the next. They always said thank you, but never asked how she was doing. Kathy didn't even expect it anymore. She just kept giving. And when she needed someone, not for money, not for help, just to be there, they weren't. They chose a cabin weekend over their sister in a hospital bed. Kathy stayed silent. She didn't respond to the post. Didn't message anyone. Just lay there in that bed, bruised and bandaged, letting it settle. She thought maybe, just maybe, someone would reach out later. They didn't. Not that day. Not the next. Not until 4 days later, when her phone lit up with 41 missed calls and a Venmo request for $3,100 labeled Cabin Weekend. Everyone's chipping in. And right under that, a message from her mom. Call back. It's urgent. We can't fix this without you. That was the moment Kathy stopped being their safety net. And she hadn't looked back since. Kathy didn't respond. Not to the Venmo request, not to the calls, and definitely not to the message from her mom that read, "Call back. It's urgent. We can't fix this without you." She just stared at her phone, still lying in the hospital bed, ribs taped, IV still in. That message made something click in her brain, but not in the way her mom probably meant it to. Kathy realized she wasn't calling because something had happened to her. She was calling because something had gone wrong for them. They needed Kathy again, and that was urgent. Her crash, the fact that she was alone in the ER for days, didn't qualify. When they finally discharged Kathy the next day, she was still limping. They asked if she had someone to pick her up. She said no. She didn't even pretend to check. Kathy ordered a rideshare and let the driver talk the entire way while she said nothing. She looked out the window and let the silence stretch. Her apartment felt different when she stepped in, like a place she hadn't really seen in years. It was clean, quiet, everything exactly where she left it. Kathy sat on the couch and stared at the wall for 10 minutes, still wearing her hospital wristband. She could feel every bruise, every cracked rib, and yet the only thing that really hurt was the silence from the people she had spent her life protecting. She slept better that night than she had in years. The next morning, Kathy made a list. Not a dramatic revenge-fueled list, just a simple, honest one. Left column. Every monthly payment she made for someone in her family. Her mom's medication. Her dad's half of the mortgage. Aaron's graduate school loan. Michelle's car lease. Luke's temporary credit card debt that Kathy had been covering for 19 months. Subscription services. Gym memberships. Utilities. Netflix. Everything. She added it up. $2,780 per month. And that was just the recurring stuff. Right column. Names of people who had checked in during the hospital stay. 3 names. Her grandmother, who called every night since she found out. Her uncle Keith, who offered to drive across state lines to pick her up if she needed help. And Brian, a coworker Kathy barely spoke to outside of meetings, who sent her a voice message saying if she needed food, he'd have some dropped off. No questions asked. No one else. Not her mom. Not her dad. Not her sisters. Not Luke. Kathy sat with the list for a while. Then she opened her banking app and started canceling, one by one. Kathy shut off every automatic transfer. She unsubscribed them from everything they didn't pay for. She removed herself from shared family plans. She ended the cable at her parents' house, canceled Michelle's gym pass, pulled the plug on the electric bill Luke had conveniently forgotten was in her name. She didn't send any messages. No warning, no drama. That afternoon, Luke messaged again. Said the cabin trip had gone a bit over budget and that she probably missed the Venmo request. He added a laughing emoji, like this was some inside joke between them. Said he'd appreciate the payment soon, just so everyone's even. Kathy left it on red. Later, Michelle called. Kathy ignored it. Then Aaron. Then her mom. Then her dad. 10 missed calls by dinner. The next morning, Kathy's mom texted again. "What's going on? You know we've always been there for each other." Kathy stared at the message and felt something she hadn't let herself feel in a long time. Clarity. They believed that. They really did. They thought this whole thing had been equal. That Kathy constantly putting out fires while they danced through life was just family helping family. That her draining her savings to keep them comfortable was what older sisters, daughters, aunts were supposed to do. But Kathy finally understood something they never had to think about. They didn't need her. They needed what she gave them. And now they didn't have it. For the first time, they were going to have to figure it out on their own. And Kathy was going to sit back and watch. It took less than 48 hours for the cracks to start showing. Luke was the first to break. He texted Kathy the next morning, pretending nothing was wrong. Just a casual, "Yo, can you spot me $150 until Friday?" message, Like they hadn't just gone radio silent after a car crash. Kathy didn't answer. 5 minutes later, he texted again. Okay, seriously? Did I do something? Just let me know, man. Still nothing from Kathy. By that evening, she got the first real attempt at guilt. Aaron sent a group text. Hey, we need to talk. This family's falling apart. Like Kathy was the glue that had stopped sticking. Like their world was crumbling because she dared to say nothing. Then Michelle called. This time, she left a voicemail. Her voice was calm. A little too calm. Like she rehearsed it. Said she wasn't sure what was going on, but hoped Kathy knew how much everyone loved her. She ended it with, "We're all stressed right now. Just call us. We'll figure it out like always." That was the phrase that did it. Like always. Because, yeah, they always figured it out. But by we, they meant Kathy. Kathy figured it out when Dad's business nearly folded, and she took a second job to cover their mortgage. She figured it out when Aaron totaled her car and needed a replacement to finish school. She figured it out when Michelle wanted to study abroad and couldn't miss the opportunity. Kathy was always the fix, not the person. Not the sister or the daughter, just the solution. That week, everything kept unraveling. Her mom sent a long message 2 days later, full of passive lines like, "I don't know why you're punishing us," and "This isn't how families treat each other." No mention of the accident. No mention of the hospital. Just frustration that Kathy was changing. Then the money problems started surfacing. Michelle's car payment bounced. She texted Kathy screenshots of the overdue notice. Said she thought there was a mistake with the automatic transfer. Kathy ignored it. Aaron emailed her. Not texted, emailed, asking if Kathy could please reinstate the loan payment just for this month. She framed it as temporary. Again, it always was. Then came her dad. He called 3 times in a row, then left a message that wasn't angry or even confused, just tired. Said the mortgage payment hadn't gone through, and that if something had changed, Kathy should have been woman enough to say so. Woman enough. He wanted a conversation. But where was that conversation 4 days earlier, when Kathy was bleeding in a trauma ward? That's when she knew they weren't sorry. They weren't reaching out because they realized what they'd done. They were reaching out because their comfort had been interrupted. It wasn't Kathy they missed. It was the version of Kathy that always said yes. Kathy started getting calls from unfamiliar numbers. At first, she thought they were spam. Then she realized Aaron had given her number to one of her classmates. She wanted them to help talk some sense into Kathy. Michelle had her friend message Kathy on Instagram, saying she was hurting everyone. Luke posted a cryptic story about how some people only show their true colors when they stop needing you. It was bizarre. Surreal. Like they had all agreed Kathy was broken because she stopped playing her role. Then her grandmother called again. She asked how Kathy was healing. Said she had a pot of soup in the freezer if Kathy wanted it. Never once asked about the money or the fallout. Just wanted to know if she needed anything. Same with Uncle Keith. He sent Kathy a prepaid grocery delivery and told her to rest up. The contrast was blinding. And that's when Kathy started to feel it. Not just anger, power. For the first time in her life, she wasn't being used. She wasn't being manipulated. She was in control of who she let in, who got access. And one by one, the doors were closing. The panic from her family was just beginning, and Kathy wasn't even close to done. By the end of the week, Kathy stopped counting the missed calls. They weren't slowing down. They were multiplying. Michelle called 10 times in one morning. Aaron emailed again, this time copying their dad. Luke tried tagging Kathy in an old photo on Facebook with the caption, "Family sticks together, even when it's hard." It was like they were all trying to bait a reaction. Any reaction. Kathy gave them none. Instead, she focused on something they hadn't yet remembered. The family business. Kathy had been running it behind the scenes for years. Her dad started it. A mid-sized remodeling company that stayed afloat because Kathy kept the books clean, negotiated supplier contracts, and handled the licenses and legal messes. Her parents played the front-facing roles, But without Kathy, it was a stack of cards balancing on trust and old habits. She built the structure. Kathy had kept it profitable, and she owned the LLC. Quietly transferred to her 5 years earlier when her dad needed a personal loan and couldn't get one from a bank. They never read the fine print. Kathy didn't think she'd ever use that leverage. She had kept things running because she wanted them to succeed, because she thought they were a team. But after the accident, after their silence, their selfishness, and the wave of entitled messages, it was time to shift things. Kathy didn't make a public announcement. She didn't call a meeting. She just logged into the back-end systems, paused the company's accounts payable, revoked admin access for every family member, and updated the website to reflect a new message. Operations paused under restructure. Then Kathy emailed the suppliers directly, the electricians, drywall guys, cabinet wholesalers, and told them payments would resume shortly under a new structure. She was professional, calm, cold even. Kathy knew it wouldn't take long for the fallout to hit. By the next afternoon, her dad called 7 times. Then her mom. She left a voicemail this time, emotional, not angry, just panicked. Said the team had shown up for a project that morning and no one could access the client files. Said a supplier called about a hold. She ended with, "What's happening? Please, this isn't like you." But it was exactly like Kathy. The Kathy they never took seriously. 2 hours later, Kathy got an unexpected call from her cousin Kyle. They hadn't spoken in almost a year. He was always the quiet one at gatherings, never got involved in family messes. He said, "Hey, I know things are messy right now, but good for you. Seriously, I saw what they did after your crash. They knew and they left anyway." Kathy asked how he knew. He told her something she hadn't expected. Apparently, Luke had posted a story on the way to the cabin, a clip in the car where Aaron literally said, "Well, she's in the hospital, what are we gonna do? Sit around and cry?" Followed by laughter. Kyle saw it before it got deleted. A few people in the extended family did. It wasn't just silence. They mocked it. That hit different. Kathy sat with that one for a while. She thought their absence was neglect, but it was worse. It was dismissal. The next morning, Kathy finalized the change. The company would continue, but without them. She filed paperwork to change the official address, froze all payroll access except her own, and scheduled a new meeting with a small crew she trusted. A few guys who'd stuck around, even during slow seasons. Kathy offered them contracts. Better ones. Ones she used to save for her family. Let her parents and siblings figure it out. Later that evening, Luke sent one more message. "You're overreacting. You're going to burn the whole family down over one bad weekend." Kathy didn't reply, but she wanted to say, it wasn't one bad weekend. It was every single one they asked her to carry. And the first one, when she needed them, they left. They still didn't understand what was really happening, but they were about to learn. And not because Kathy wanted revenge, but because, for once, they were going to feel what it meant to stand on their own or fall. The fallout came fast, but not loud. It was like a quiet unraveling that got messier with every hour. Kathy hadn't planned on checking in on them, but updates kept finding her. Contractors she'd worked with for years were forwarding her frantic messages from her dad. His tone was all over the place. One moment polite, the next threatening. He was demanding supplier access, asking why the accounts were frozen, claiming it was a glitch. Some of the guys just laughed and sent Kathy screenshots. One wrote back, "Didn't know your old man was such a talker. Thought you handled all the real stuff." He was right. Luke, of course, took a different route. He started posting vague story updates. One showed the company van parked at the edge of the driveway with the caption, "When you give your whole life to something just to get blindsided." As if Kathy hadn't kept him employed through at least 5 of his burnout career phases. The last job he had before working for the family business lasted 6 weeks, and Kathy helped him get that one too. Then Aaron messaged Kathy again. She tried to come in soft. Said she knew things were weird, but hoped Kathy could front her tuition just one last time, that she'd talk to Mom, and everyone was ready to apologize. She even added, "We were just overwhelmed during the trip. No one knew how serious your crash was. Kathy didn't respond because she'd heard Aaron say it on video. Kathy hadn't told anyone she'd seen the clip Kyle mentioned, the one Luke posted briefly during their drive to the cabin where Aaron literally laughed and said, "Well, she's in the hospital. What are we going to do? Sit around and cry?" Kathy found it saved in a screen, recording someone else had taken. It circulated in their extended family chat briefly before getting pulled down. They joked, mocked, then drove off without a second thought. Kathy didn't say a word about it, but it was there in the back of her mind every time she looked at a new message pretending to care. Then something unexpected happened. Her mom showed up alone. She didn't call ahead, just rang the buzzer at Kathy's building around 8 p.m. Kathy saw her on the security feed standing there, holding what looked like a tin of food and one of those soft grocery bags filled with what Kathy guessed were freezer meals. She stood like she used to at the end of parent-teacher nights. Quiet, unsure what mood she was walking into. Kathy debated not answering. She was tired. Her ribs still ached, but curiosity won. She buzzed her in. Her mom didn't say anything right away. Just placed the bag on the counter like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Then finally, "I didn't come to talk you into anything. I just didn't want your freezer to be empty." They stood in silence. Then her mom asked, "Are you going to leave us behind for good?" Kathy said, "I already did. You just didn't notice." Her mom didn't cry, didn't argue. She nodded slowly, like she had expected that answer but hoped Kathy would say something else. Then she left. And for a moment, Kathy actually believed that might be the end of it. But it wasn't. 3 days later, Kathy got a letter. Not an email. A real letter, in an envelope, with her name handwritten on the front. It was from her grandmother. Inside, a simple note. "You've done the right thing, even if it feels heavy. I've been watching this for years. I knew it would come to this eventually. Just don't forget to leave space for peace when you're ready." Taped to the bottom was a folded check for $3,100, the same amount they'd requested from Kathy for the cabin weekend. The check wasn't from guilt. It wasn't even a message. It was just her grandmother's way of saying, "You don't owe them. They owe you. And I know which side I'm on." Kathy didn't cash it. Still hasn't. But she kept it because, for the first time in years, she wasn't alone. And that mattered more than anything. By the 3rd week, the noise stopped. The texts that used to come every morning, the missed calls, the frantic voicemails, the half-hearted apologies, they all just disappeared. At first, Kathy thought maybe it was a pause. One of those guilt-based silences that comes before a new wave of manipulation. But it wasn't. It was surrender. They finally got it. Kathy wasn't coming back. There was no version of this where she returned to the same place in the family structure. No more fixer, no more backup plan. No more unpaid emotional labor packaged as love. Whatever image they had of Kathy, the steady one, the helper, the woman who always showed up when it counted, it was gone. Because when it counted for Kathy, they weren't there. The company kept going. Smaller, cleaner, healthier. Kathy kept only the crew that worked hard, showed up, and didn't expect shortcuts. It was slower at first, but more honest. She handed over field operations to 2 of the guys she trusted and focused on strategy and finance, the parts she actually liked. Kathy got offers from other firms to consult. Started building something for herself, not for the family. For herself. She didn't make an announcement. She didn't burn down their house or send a dramatic message. Kathy just walked away. Luke ended up working the night shift at a fulfillment center out by the freeway. He told one of the drywall guys Kathy used to manage that it was just a placeholder, but Kathy knew better. That was the job now. No more backdoor handouts. No more work van. No more under-the-table pay. Just reality. Aaron pulled out of grad school, sent out a post on social media about taking a mental health break. Her old professor reached out to Kathy for a recommendation, not realizing what happened. Kathy didn't reply. Michelle quietly sold her car and moved back in with their parents. They pretended it was temporary, like everything else. the kind of temporary that turns into a year. As for Kathy's mom, she tried again one more time. A text around 9 p.m. on a Sunday night said she'd been thinking about everything. Said it was strange not hearing from Kathy. Told her the family dinners weren't the same and asked if Kathy would consider dropping by one day soon. Kathy stared at the message for a long time. Not because she was tempted, but because, for the first time, she didn't feel anything. No anger, no sadness, just a kind of stillness she hadn't felt in years. Like she was standing outside a house she used to live in, one that never really felt like home, and realizing she didn't miss it. She never really had. Kathy didn't answer. She went out the next day and bought a plane ticket to Oregon, a place she'd always wanted to visit but never had time for. Kathy rented a cabin alone and spent a week surrounded by trees, fog, and total quiet. No favors. No obligation. No one asking for anything. And for the first time, Kathy felt what it was like to exist for herself, not as a support system, not as a bank, just as Kathy. She still talks to her grandmother, still visits Uncle Keith now and then. They never brought up the family split. They didn't have to. They saw it happen in slow motion over the years, just like Kathy did. Her grandmother still sends cards, sometimes with notes, sometimes with checks. Kathy knows she won't cash. Just gestures that mean something. That's what real love looks like. People say family is everything, but they never talk about what happens when your family is the thing holding you back. When love comes with conditions. When loyalty is one-sided. Kathy had to crash, literally, to finally see it. And she's not angry anymore. She's not waiting for apologies. She's not hoping for change. They've got their lives. Kathy's got hers. The difference is Kathy built hers on truth and peace. They built theirs on borrowed time. And Kathy is no longer the one paying for it.